The Tzerak were the undisputed apex predators of the known galaxy. They had conquered over 200 species, obliterated fleets, and turned planets into barren wastelands simply because they could. They did not hunt for survival, they hunted because it was fun. For centuries, they had roamed the stars in search of worthy prey, only to be disappointed time and time again. The so-called warrior species of the universe had crumbled before them, offering little more than momentary resistance before being wiped out. Earth? A laughable backwater planet. The humans did not even possess interstellar travel. Their weapons were primitive, relying on kinetic force rather than energy-based destruction. They lacked shields, cybernetic enhancements, or anything remotely advanced by galactic standards. When the Galactic Council declared Earth an open hunting ground, the Tzerak fleets had descended like vultures. No full-scale invasion was needed, there was no war to be fought. Instead, warbands landed in key regions across the planet, engaging in their favorite sport, the hunt. Warlord Zorthal led one such hunting party. His dropship cut through the Earth's atmosphere, its hull glowing red as it streaked across the sky. They were heading toward the Amazon rainforest, a thick, untamed jungle teeming with life. Zorthal had no interest in Earth's wildlife, though. He wanted humans. The idea of such a weak, fragile species claiming dominance over this world was offensive to him. They have no natural weapons, sneered Dreknar, his second-in-command. No claws, no fangs, no armor. Another warrior let out a guttural laugh. Their guns can barely pierce our armor. I say we give them a head start. Let them run. Zorthal smirked at their amusement but said nothing. He had seen holos of human combat footage. It was unimpressive, but there was something strange about their tactics. They didn't rely on brute force or overwhelming numbers like the other species the Tzerak had crushed. Instead, humans adapted. It wouldn't matter. No species had ever outmatched the Tzerak in a ground hunt. The ship descended into a clearing, thrusters flattening the vegetation below. The side ramp hissed open, releasing a burst of cool, pressurized air. Zorthal stepped onto the soft, damp earth, inhaling deeply. The air was thick with moisture, and the buzzing of insects filled the atmosphere. A cacophony of sounds, birds, unseen creatures moving in the undergrowth, surrounded them. He flexed his clawed fingers. This would be entertaining. His hunting party, 12 of the finest Tzerak warriors, spread out in formation. Their armor blended into the environment, shifting its coloration to mimic the dense greens and browns of the jungle. Zorthal activated his helmet scanners, sending out a pulse. Heat signatures flickered on his visor, small animals, harmless creatures. No sign of humans. Dreknar clicked his mandibles. No resistance? Disappointing. Zorthal wasn't concerned. They were watching. Humans always watched first. For the next hour, the hunting party moved through the jungle, tracking nothing. The environment was thick, humid, and alive, but there was no sign of human soldiers. Zorthal felt a flicker of annoyance. Had the humans fled? Were they truly that pathetic? Then, a distant crack. It wasn't the sound of an animal. It wasn't the rustling of trees. It was something else. Zorthal turned just as one of his warriors collapsed. The Tzerak barely had time to react. The fallen warrior twitched once, blood pooling beneath him. His helmet had a hole clean through it, a single, precise shot through the skull. A gunshot. The jungle fell silent. The other warriors turned, gripping their weapons. Dreknar hissed. What was? Crack. Another shot. A second warrior jerked back, his body convulsing before he dropped like a stone. A hole had been punched through his helmet, right between his eyes. Panic rippled through the hunting party. Zorthal's mind raced. This wasn't possible. Human weapons weren't supposed to be able to do this. Not with one shot. Not with such perfect accuracy. Then, bang. A third hunter fell. His massive, armored frame crumpled into the ferns like a ragdoll. The remaining warriors froze. Zorthal's instincts screamed at him. They were being hunted. Find it, he barked. Find the shooter. Dreknar snarled, his helmet scanning the jungle. The Tzerak had thermal sensors, motion detectors, and electromagnetic tracking systems, yet nothing appeared. It was as if their attacker didn't exist. A flicker of motion. Zorthal barely registered it before another shot rang out. The warrior beside him exploded backward, blood splattering against a nearby tree. 4 dead in less than 10 seconds. The sniper had them pinned. Dreknar roared in frustration. Impossible. A human cannot. The comms in Zorthal's helmet crackled to life. A voice, calm and measured, spoke in perfect Tesseract. "Welcome to Earth." Bang! A fifth Tesseract fell. Zorthal felt something he had never felt before. Something cold. Something that crept through his veins like venom. Fear. This was no ordinary human. This was no pathetic, mindless prey. This was a predator. And the hunt had just begun. The jungle was supposed to be silent. The moment a Tesseract hunting party landed, the battlefield usually followed the same pattern. Their prey, whatever unfortunate species they had decided to toy with, would either run or foolishly attempt to fight. The air would be filled with panicked screams, desperate gunfire, and the inevitable slaughter. But now? Now, the jungle wasn't filled with screams. It was filled with death. One by one, the best hunters of the Tesseract Empire were being executed. The sniper had already claimed 5 of them. And they still had no idea where he was. Zorthal's massive form crouched behind a fallen tree, mandibles twitching with frustration. His armor scanners pulsed in every direction, searching for any sign of movement. Nothing. No heat signatures. No electromagnetic interference. No air displacement. The sniper was a ghost. He turned toward Dreknar, his second-in-command. The warrior's mandibles were clenched tight, his body tense in a way Zorthal had never seen before. Dreknar was a veteran, just like him. He had slaughtered thousands. He had led hunts on high-gravity worlds, fought against beasts that could rip through steel, and never once had he flinched. Now, Dreknar looked nervous. "What in the void is happening?" the warrior snarled. "Where are the shots coming from?" Zorthal didn't answer immediately. He didn't know. The human was breaking every rule of combat the Tesseract had ever encountered. Their enemies always revealed themselves. Whether through fear, desperation, or foolish overconfidence, they always exposed their position. But this sniper? This sniper had already killed 5 of them and still hadn't shown so much as a flicker of movement. "Keep your barriers up," Zorthal ordered. "Fan out. Scan every possible vantage point." Dreknar exhaled sharply, adjusting the settings on his rifle. "If this human thinks he can keep picking us off, we'll remind him who the true predators are." The remaining warriors, 7 in total, spread out in careful, deliberate movements. Their armor's active camouflage shimmered, making them blend with the jungle's dense foliage. It wasn't true invisibility, but against any lesser species, it had always been enough. The Tesseract were no longer hunting. They were being hunted. And they hated it. The sniper watches. 300 meters away, hidden in the dense canopy, Staff Sergeant Michael Grimm Halloway watched through the scope of his .50 caliber sniper rifle. His breathing was steady. His heartbeat was calm. His crosshairs hovered over another Tesseract warrior, a massive brute with thick, segmented armor and a plasma rifle that could melt steel. A beast from another world. Grimm exhaled slowly. This wasn't just a mission anymore. This was payback. A week ago, the Tesseract had made a mistake. They had attacked a small human outpost. It wasn't even a military installation, just a civilian research base with about 30 scientists and their families. The Tesseract hadn't come for territory. They hadn't come for resources. They had come to play. Grimm had seen the aftermath. Men, women, and children slaughtered for sport. Their bodies were strung up like trophies, their skin carved with symbols that translated to one word. Prey. Grimm and his team had arrived too late. Too late to save them. But not too late to make them pay. He had spent the last 3 days tracking the Tesseract hunting party through the jungle, watching their movements, studying their patterns. He had learned their rhythms, their arrogance, their blind spots. And then, just 30 minutes ago, he had started killing them. The kill continues. Grimm adjusted his scope, calculating the slight breeze, the humidity, and the target's movement. The Tesseract were fanning out now, trying to locate him. Good. He wanted them to feel hunted. His finger tightened on the trigger. Boom. The rifle kicked against his shoulder. A sixth Tesseract dropped, his head snapping back as the bullet ripped through his skull. The remaining aliens froze. A second of hesitation. A second was too long. Boom. A seventh warrior fell. Grimm smiled grimly. The hunters were dying one by one. And they still had no idea where he was. Terror spreads. Dreknar swore violently as yet another body hit the ground. The jungle was haunted. There's only one, he snarled. One human. Why can't we see him? Another warrior spun wildly, his plasma rifle firing blindly into the trees. Zorthal grabbed him, slamming him against a tree. Control yourself, he snapped. The warrior panted, his mandibles twitching. His picking us off like prey, the warrior whispered. Zorthal hated that word. But it was the truth. The sniper wasn't fighting them. He was butchering them. Zorthal's claws dug into the bark of the tree. No species had ever done this to them before. No species had ever made them feel fear. Regroup, he commanded. Get to cover. We need to. Boom. Dreknar's head exploded. One moment, his second-in-command was standing beside him. The next, his skull was gone, a fine red mist spraying across the jungle floor. Zorthal flinched. The sniper had just killed his best warrior right in front of him. And he still couldn't see him. The surviving warriors were panicking now. Their bodies were low, crouched, their heads snapping in every direction. Their weapons were gripped too tightly, the sign of soldiers who were starting to lose their nerve. Zorthal felt it too. This wasn't war. This was a nightmare. And the worst part? The human wasn't running out of ammo. Grim's next move. Grim adjusted his position, crawling further along the tree branch, keeping his profile low. His ghillie suit, woven with jungle leaves, moss, and mud, rendered him almost invisible to the naked eye. He had 4 shots left in the current mag. Enough to break them completely. He watched through his scope as the remaining 5 Tzarak huddled together. Big mistake. Grim smirked. A clustered enemy? That was a gift. He shifted his aim slightly, targeting the warrior in the center of the group. If he took this one out, the others would scatter. And when people panicked, they died faster. His finger found the trigger. He exhaled. Boom. The bullet slammed through the center warrior, but it didn't stop. The round pierced straight through his skull and kept going, hitting the Tzarak behind him. 2 dead in one shot. The remaining 3 Tzarak broke formation instantly, diving into the undergrowth. Their discipline shattered. Grim's smile widened. Now they were running. Perfect. That just made them easier to kill. Zorthal's last thought. The warlord was done. He activated his emergency beacon, sending a distress signal to the orbiting fleet. The moment his claw pressed the button, he knew. He had made a mistake. Boom. Zorthal never heard the shot. His skull burst apart, and his body collapsed into the mud. The Tzarak hunting party was dead. And the last thing they had ever seen? The jungle. The trees. And nothing else. Because the sniper had never let them see him. The jungle was silent again. The bodies of Zorthal and his warriors lay scattered across the forest floor, their massive forms twisted in death. Blood seeped into the damp earth, mixing with the scent of gunpowder and crushed vegetation. From his hidden perch, Staff Sergeant Michael Grim Halloway lowered his rifle slightly, his sharp eyes scanning for any signs of movement. He had exterminated the hunting party. 12 of the galaxy's most feared warriors, reduced to nothing. And yet, Grim's instincts screamed at him. Something wasn't right. His kills had been too easy. The Tzarak were arrogant, but they weren't stupid. They had hunted and conquered dozens of species across the galaxy. The fact that an entire party had been wiped out without reinforcements arriving? That was wrong. Grim exhaled slowly, shifting his position in the dense canopy. His ghillie suit blended perfectly with the jungle, keeping him concealed. He needed to move. Something was coming. And he had no intention of waiting around to find out what. Above the jungle, Tzarak warship Bloodfang. Commander Virax stood on the bridge of the Bloodfang, his mandibles grinding together in frustration. His taloned fingers dug into the armrests of his chair as he listened to the distress signal that had come from the planet's surface, specifically, from Zorthal's hunting party. The transmission had been brief. Panicked voices. Gunfire. And then, the unmistakable boom of a sniper rifle. Then, silence. The Tzarak didn't send distress signals. They were apex predators, warriors without fear. For Zorthal's party to have called for help meant one thing. Something had hunted them down. Virax's mandibles twitched. He turned to his tactical officer, Draketh, his second-in-command. Deploy the Reapers. Draketh nodded, pressing a sequence into his console. Shall we use the drones as well? Virax's claws tapped against the chair's metal armrest. No. I want boots on the ground. Whoever did this doesn't deserve an easy death. I want them broken. The warship's hangar opened, and 30 elite Tzarak warriors dropped toward the jungle below. The hunt had begun. Grim's escape. Grim moved like a shadow through the jungle, his steps light, his rifle slung across his back. He had spent years learning to disappear into his environment, and right now, disappearing was his best option. He knew reinforcements were coming. The Tzerak wouldn't let their best warriors vanish without a response. He needed to fall back. Find a new vantage point. He had already pre-scouted multiple fallback locations across the jungle. A sniper never stayed in one place for too long. Then, through the trees, he saw it. A Tzerak dropship descending. The massive black and red craft hovered above the jungle, its side doors sliding open. Figures leaped out, big, armored figures. Grim's stomach tightened. This wasn't just another hunting party. These were elites. The Reapers. The best of the best. They weren't here to hunt him. They were here to exterminate him. Grim clenched his jaw. All right then. If they wanted a fight? He'd give them hell. The Tzerak close in. Virax's voice crackled through the comms in the helmets of his warriors. Spread out. The human is alone, but he is dangerous. He has already eliminated a full hunting party. Do not underestimate him. The Reapers moved methodically, sweeping the jungle with their advanced scanners. Unlike Zorthal's squad, they didn't laugh at the humans' weapons. They had seen the aftermath. They had seen what one man with a rifle could do. And they hated him for it. One of the warriors, Kaezul, tapped his helmet side, switching to thermal vision. A faint heat signature flickered in the treetops. Movement, Kaezul growled. The squad pivoted instantly, their weapons trained on the location. Then, boom. Kaezul's helmet exploded, his massive frame collapsing into the mud. The sniper had already found them. Grim's counterattack. Grim barely had time to relocate before the jungle erupted with plasma fire. Bright red bolts tore through the trees, melting leaves and igniting the undergrowth. The Tzerak weren't playing anymore. Grim hit the ground, rolling behind a fallen tree trunk as the air sizzled above him. He needed to move, and he needed to move now. He gritted his teeth, checking his rifle's ammo count. 7 shots left. That meant 7 kills. He took a breath, adjusted his aim, and pulled the trigger. Boom. A Tzerak warrior collapsed, his chest cavity torn apart. Boom. Another dropped, his helmet caving inward as the bullet ripped through his skull. The remaining Reapers roared in rage, scattering into smaller groups to avoid being picked off. Smart. Didn't matter. Grim adjusted his position, moving through the trees like a phantom. He had trained for this, hunting men who thought they were invincible. He was a Green Beret sniper. And right now, he was the deadliest thing in this jungle. Virax's realization. On the Bloodfang, Commander Virax watched the battle unfold through the helmet feeds of his warriors. They were dying. One by one. Despite superior numbers. Despite superior technology. The human was outnumbered 30-1, yet he was winning. Virax's claws curled into the armrests of his chair. This is impossible, Draketh hissed. One human cannot. He isn't human, Virax growled. He's something else. He tapped his control panel. Launch the hunter drones, he ordered. No more games. No more honor. It was time to burn this jungle to the ground. A storm of fire. Grim had just relocated when he heard it. A low, mechanical whine in the distance. He turned his head slightly. Drones. The Tzerak had sent in airborne hunter-killers. Grim exhaled slowly. All right. They wanted to turn this into hell? He'd just have to be meaner than hell itself. He reloaded his rifle, took one last breath, and disappeared deeper into the jungle. Tzerak hunter-killers enter the fray. The jungle pulsed with an eerie stillness. Grim could feel it. Something had changed. The Tzerak weren't just angry anymore. They weren't hunting him for sport or even for revenge. They were out for extermination. Grim adjusted his rifle and moved deeper into the jungle, his senses razor-sharp. The moment he had heard that mechanical whine, the sound of hunter-killer drones powering up, he knew the battlefield had shifted. The game was no longer sniper versus alien warriors. It was one man versus an entire war machine. The hunter drones activate. Above the dense canopy, the Tzerak hunter-killer drones spread out, their sensors pulsing with deadly precision. Each drone was 6 feet long, built for tracking, equipped with thermal vision, motion sensors, and plasma cannons that could melt through solid rock. They were designed for one purpose: to eliminate anything that moved. Aboard the Bloodfang, Commander Virax watched the screens as the drones swept through the jungle, scanning for their prey. Force him into the open, Virax growled. Burn him out if you have to. The drone operators nodded, their claws tapping commands into the controls. A moment later, the drone's weapons lit up. A wall of fire and plasma erupted across the jungle, trees exploding into flames as the drones razed everything in their path. Virax leaned forward. There was no way a lone human could survive this. Grimm's counterattack. The first explosion nearly took Grimm's leg off. A plasma blast erupted less than 10 feet away, turning a massive tree into molten slag. Grimm hit the dirt, rolling into the undergrowth as fire rained down around him. "They're flushing me out." The drones weren't searching anymore. They were burning him alive. Grimm clenched his jaw, his mind working at lightning speed. He needed a new strategy. Fast. His eyes flicked to a large rock formation to his left. That could work. But first, he needed a distraction. Tactical deception. Grimm yanked a grenade from his vest, pulled the pin, and hurled it toward a patch of dense trees. Boom. The explosion ripped through the jungle, sending a shockwave in the opposite direction of his escape route. As expected, the drones turned immediately, their sensors locking onto the heat signature of the blast. Grimm moved. He sprinted low and fast, ducking behind the rock formation. His ghillie suit was half-burnt, his body coated in dirt, sweat, and ash, but he was still alive. And in war, being alive meant you could still kill. Grimm pulled his rifle off his back and set up his ambush. The first drone falls. The drones hovered over the blast site, their scanners sweeping the area. Grimm lay completely still, his breathing shallow, his rifle locked onto the nearest drone. These things were fast, but they weren't invincible. They had a weak spot, a small sensor node near the base of their chassis. Grimm adjusted his aim. He counted down. 3, 2, 1. Boom. The first shot ripped through the drone's sensor node, and the machine jerked violently before spiraling into a tree, exploding on impact. The jungle lit up as the other drones turned toward his position. Grimm was already gone. The Tesseract Reapers close in. The moment the first drone went down, the remaining Reapers changed tactics. Virax's voice boomed over their comms. "Push forward. He's not a ghost. He's a man. Overwhelm him." The remaining Tesseract warriors charged, moving through the jungle in tight formations. They weren't hunting anymore. They were purging. Grimm could hear them, branches snapping, leaves rustling, the heavy thuds of their armored boots crushing the earth. He adjusted his rifle, slowed his breathing, and waited. The jungle becomes a killing ground. The first Reaper stepped into Grimm's kill zone. A massive, 8-foot Tesseract warrior, armored in black plating, scanning the treetops with cold, murderous precision. He never saw the shot coming. Boom. The round punched through his helmet, splattering his brain matter across the trees. The second warrior roared in rage, charging forward. Boom. A shot tore through his knee, dropping him instantly. Before he could even scream. Boom. Another round erased his head from existence. The jungle erupted in chaos as the remaining Reapers spread out, firing wildly into the trees. Grimm kept moving, never staying in one place for more than a second. One shot. One kill. Another shot. Another dead alien. The Tesseract were dying faster than they could react. For the first time in their history, they weren't the hunters. They were the hunted. The Bloodfang's last resort. Virax stood frozen on the bridge, his eyes locked on the tactical display. The Reapers were falling. The drones were destroyed. One human had outmaneuvered, outgunned, and outwitted the best warriors in the Tesseract Empire. Virax's claws dug into his chair. This couldn't be happening. He refused to believe it. He turned to Draketh. "Prepare the orbital strike." Draketh's mandibles twitched. "Commander, our own forces are still on the ground." "I don't care." Virax snarled. "Burn this jungle to ash. Wipe him out." The order was given. The Bloodfang's main cannon began charging. In 60 seconds, the jungle, and everything in it, would be vaporized. Grimm's last stand. Grimm heard it. A deep, ominous hum from above. He knew what it meant. An orbital strike. He checked his ammo. 3 rounds left. He checked his surroundings. 2 remaining Reapers closing in. And above them, a Tesseract officer watching the battlefield from a cliffside, a high-ranking bastard, most likely relaying targeting coordinates to the ship above. Grimm made his choice. 3 bullets. 3 targets. He took aim. Boom. The first Reaper collapsed, his head detonating like a melon. Boom. The second staggered backward, a bullet tearing through his chest. Grimm's last bullet was already chambered. His scope locked onto the officer on the cliff. He took a deep breath. Squeezed the trigger. Boom. The officer's skull exploded in a spray of blue blood. Aboard the Bloodfang, the targeting systems flickered, the attack sequence disrupted. The cannon's charge collapsed. Without active target guidance, the ship couldn't fire. Virax roared in fury. His last chance to kill the human had failed. The warship Bloodfang hovered above the jungle, its massive silhouette blotting out the sky. Inside the command deck, Commander Virax trembled with rage. His claws dug deep into his armrests as he watched the battlefield through the flickering screens. His Reapers, the finest warriors of the Tesseract, were dead. His hunter drones were destroyed. His orbital strike had been foiled at the last second when the sniper, this damn human, killed the officer providing targeting data. One sniper had annihilated everything the Tesseract had thrown at him. And he was still alive. Virax's mandibles ground together. Enough, he growled. Prepare for total ground deployment. Draketh, his second-in-command, hesitated. Commander, we have already lost. Virax backhanded him so hard that Draketh's armored body slammed against the wall. We are Tesseract. Virax bellowed, his voice shaking the command deck. We do not lose to a single human. His claws curled into fists. If the sniper wanted a war, Virax would give him one. Deploy the warlords, he snarled. And take us down there, personally. Draketh wiped blood from his mandibles and nodded. The warship's massive dropships roared to life, carrying an entire battalion of Tesseract warriors. The final battle had begun. Grimm's realization, the warship is coming. Grimm stood in the smoldering remains of the jungle, his rifle heavy in his hands. He had won. No. Not yet. He could feel it, the way the air shifted, the way the jungle's silence wasn't just from death but from something worse. Then he heard it. The deep, rumbling whine of dropship engines. Grimm looked up. Through the smoke and shattered trees, he saw the Bloodfang descending. Motherf. His radio crackled. A voice came through. Halloway. Grimm's breath caught. That voice, he knew it. Command, he rasped. Sit tight. Backup's coming. ETA, 6 minutes. Grimm grinned. Backup? The Tesseract were about to find out what happens when you push Earth too far. The Tesseract battalion lands. The jungle shook as 3 dozen Tesseract dropships touched down. Their ramps slammed open, and hundreds of warriors poured into the battlefield. These weren't the Reapers. They were warlords, the deadliest frontline soldiers in the Tesseract Empire. And leading them, Commander Virax himself. He stepped onto the battlefield, his crimson war armor gleaming in the firelight, his massive plasma axe humming with raw power. This is the end, Virax growled, his voice booming across the jungle. Bring me his corpse. The Tesseract roared, their war drums pounding as they charged toward Grimm's last position. Grimm's last stand. Grimm adjusted his scope. One sniper. Against an entire army. He took a deep breath. The first shot ripped through a warlord's skull, sending his body tumbling down the hill. The second shot shattered the knee of another, dropping him into the mud. Boom. 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 3 more kills. Still, they kept coming. The jungle lit up with plasma fire. Trees exploded into flaming debris as Grimm dodged, rolled, and relocated. His rifle was nearly empty. He needed a miracle. And then, the sky split apart. Earth's wrath arrives. A sonic boom tore through the battlefield, shaking the ground so violently that even the Tesseract hesitated. Grimm's radio crackled. Halloway, look up. He did. And he laughed. A Terran warship had entered orbit. But it wasn't just one. It was 3. And dropping from them, roaring through the sky like avenging angels, were dozens of drop pods. Inside those pods? U.S. Army Special Forces. The real fight had begun. The battle becomes a massacre. The first drop pod slammed into the ground with earth-shaking force. The hatches burst open, and out stepped armored soldiers, weapons raised. They weren't just Marines. They weren't just soldiers. They were Green Berets. And they were pissed off. The jungle erupted as they opened fire, their railguns and explosives ripping through the Tesseract ranks like a hurricane of death. Tesseract warriors howled in pain as limbs were blown off, chests were torn open, and skulls were split apart. The battle turned into a bloodbath. Grimm grinned savagely and joined in, switching to his sidearm, cutting down any Tesseract foolish enough to come near. Virax's forces were dying by the dozens. The hunters had become prey. And the humans? They were butchers. The duel, Grimm versus Virax. Virax saw his warriors falling. He saw the humans slaughtering his kind with brutal efficiency. And then he saw Grimm, covered in blood and dirt, staring right at him. Virax roared. He charged forward, plasma axe raised high. Grimm holstered his pistol. He picked up a fallen Tesseract combat blade, its massive serrated edge still slick with alien blood. The two warriors collided. Virax's axe slammed down, but Grim dodged, rolling beneath the massive swing. He came up fast, slashing with the alien blade, cutting deep into Virax's leg. The commander roared in pain, staggering back. Grim pressed forward. A slash. A stab. Virax blocked one strike but took another deep across his chest. Blood dripped onto the jungle floor. Virax panted, his vision blurring. Impossible. He was Tesseract royalty. A legendary warrior. And yet, a single human, a sniper, was killing him. Grim didn't hesitate. He lunged one final time, burying the blade deep into Virax's throat. The Tesseract choked, his eyes wide in disbelief. Grim leaned in, whispering, "You should have run." With a savage twist, he ripped the blade free. And Virax's head hit the dirt. The aftermath. The moment Virax died, the remaining Tesseract broke. They fled, roaring in fear, dropping their weapons as the Green Berets gunned them down. By the time the smoke cleared, the jungle was silent again. Grim stood in the ruins of the battlefield, blood dripping from his armor, surrounded by corpses. A Green Beret captain approached, clapping him on the shoulder. "Hell of a fight," he said. Grim exhaled. "Yeah." He looked up at the Bloodfang, still floating in orbit. They would send more. They always did. But next time? They'd know better. Because Earth didn't just have soldiers. It had killers. And no matter who came, the sniper would always be waiting.